talk about something called as exposure, is controlled by three things: shutter speed, aperture, and ISO. Okay, ISO is not in camera control, as in like it's not part of the camera. It's mostly digital or the film chemical compound which is tuned to the light sensitivity. Okay, ISO is like that. Okay, so it's not a integral, like a mechanical component of the camera. It's more like a digital component with the mechanical control. Okay, electronic component with mechanical control. But mostly these things define exposure in the camera. Okay, exposure as in like whatever you're seeing my image on the computer. The skies look more bright, and I look okay because the sun was on above me, and which is casting shadows under me, which is the face where I have the camera in front of, me taking the selfie, So it's casting shadow on my face itself because of the location of the light source. Okay. So where were we? So yeah. It also depends on the exposure. It also depends on where your light source is and how you are using these three things: shutter speed, aperture, and ISO, to make this image or capture this image on your mobile device. Okay, so after capturing in mobile device in software, the exposure in terms of photo editing is said by how well the image was captured. You are looking at my photograph, how well it is captured. It is sharp, it's clean. I could see most of the things in my photograph. It's neat. The image has to convey that I'm showing some peace symbol with my hand. I'm laughing. My eyes are looking at the camera. That's all I need. I don't care about the background here. So it's been properly captured and decently exposed. Okay, minus the background. Okay, the image is completely on the darker side. Say like if my face was completely darker, or the image is on the completely brighter side, it's called in as overexposed or underexposed image. So if it is on darker side, it's called underexposure. If it is on the brighter side, it's called overexposure. Okay, and if an image has a good amount of detailed information from brightest point to the darkest point, from the highlights to the shadows, it's properly exposed image. I would say this image is fairly properly exposed image. So highlights being the brightest point, as in the sky, shadows being my face and my hands. These are the things which is under the sun, so it's casting some sort of shadow. So the shadows are pretty decent here. I could see every detail that is there in my face and hands, but the sky is slightly bright, but that's also okay. So you understand, this exposure is pretty decent. So the detail of information that is found on this photograph is appropriate and good for viewing with your naked eye. Okay, and adjusting this slider can bring back the detail or can do opposite to the image. Okay, so where is exposure in the mobile editing app that you're looking on the screen mirroring application? It's going to be found under adjust, and then you have the exposure. So I was waiting to complete that slide to read out the slide completely. So when I said like if the image is underexposed, so the slider is on the -100 value and it's all dark. When I say it is overexposed, the slider is on the maximum position and you could see what an overexposed image looks like. Okay, and when you say like the image is correctly exposed, you could put the slider or close to 0 or one or plus or minus 2 or 3 values onto the negative side or to the positive side. That kind of gives and balances the image. So if you want to brighten up a little bit, you use this. Okay, so that is what this exposure control is for. Okay, then what is brightness is for? What is brightness then? Let's go and see and find it out. Brightness in terms of photo editing is simply how dark or light a photograph or an image is. Okay, so it's almost like exposure, but it's not exposure. Let me tell you that. We'll get into that. Okay. So brightness is something is in camera as well, but for your LCD screen that you find it on your display, camera's rear display. Okay. Rear LCD screen, rear screen. Okay. So brightness, contrast, shadows, like whatever technical terms we're discussing can be adjusted for the viewing of your LCD screen. So this brightness is mostly associated with the software term, okay, with the photo editing. It's not in camera feature. Okay. Okay, let's get into the brightness onto the right side here. Okay, increasing brightness of the image makes the photograph or an image look lighter. See, it's unlike exposure, it increases the whiteness in the image. Okay, so we'll get to the detail. Lighter meaning areas, lighter areas are even more lighter, darker areas are lighter than what they were. So that is what has happened. Okay, so the sky has become much more lighter now, and the shadows and my face and my hands have become much more lighter than what it was at the natural position. So next comes brightness is used to improve the darker parts of the image. Okay, so definitely yes. If there is any darker side of the image, I could use a slider to adjust that. Using exposure controls would blow the highlights when done to improve the darker parts of the image. So that is the difference between exposure and brightness. Okay, so when you're increasing the exposure too much, it's going to blow up all the highlights. I mean, like the sky, the already things which were brighter, it's going to affect that part and also the darker side of the image. But using brightness, it's not going to blow up. It's going to just lighten that. Okay, it's increasing the grayness in the image. Okay, not the visual gray, as in like it's becoming more white. It's moving it towards white. Okay, exposure is used to improve the highlights of the image when it's slightly on the darker side. Okay, so yeah, for a darker image, it's going to improve the the highlights. Okay, I might not be sometimes clear with my explanation, but you could definitely get an gist of what I'm trying to say. Exposure and brightness are two different things, and what it affects, what value it is affecting, or what term it is affecting. Okay, so let's get into contrast. That's our next slide. Okay, so contrast is the range of brightness in the photograph. Okay, so the range of brightness. Remember what brightness is. Brightness makes the image lighter and lighter. Okay, darker areas even more lighter, whiter areas even more lighter, and darker areas lighter than what it was. Okay, contrast is the range of brightness in the photograph. Okay, and high contrast image will have brightest highlight and darkest shadow. Let's see high contrast, what that means. Like I'm totally increasing to 100. So what it had done is like made the black even more blacker, made the white even more whiter. Okay, that's what it has done. Okay, third point, highlights could be pure white and shadows could be pure black on a high contrast photograph. So where you could find an high contrast photograph is like probably from my presentation. Let's go there for a second. I'll open up. So you find this image, right? So this has that pure example. It's like highlights could be pure white and shadows could be pure black. So in this image, this is a high contrast image, you could call that, because like highlights and shadows are much more it has a lot of white and a lot of darkness in it. Okay, let's get into what is shadow and what is highlight in the coming sessions. Okay, and then fourth point, please watch for clipping when editing an image on a computer. Editors on mobile normally don't indicate or get to a point of clipping an image. Clipping is the correct term that you need to remember. Clipping is something like when I put my slider to the maximum or to the lowest, to the maximum, the blacks that you read on the mobile screen, it won't go more than what black it has to be, beyond the sRGB color space. Okay, it won't go beyond that color space, which will make it difficult for that photograph to be printed or properly displayed on the website or on the mobile screen. Okay, that is what clipping is. Okay, when the white becomes more than white or more white beyond the color space, when the black becomes more blacker beyond the color space, it won't be properly able to be printed. You won't find a color in the ink, a color and an ink on your printer to print that particular black or particular white. Or when it is displayed on a computer monitor with a display which is called SR, which is limited to the sRGB color space, that you won't see that color. Say if my face is too dark and too white, you won't be able to see that color properly. It will be like jarred. It won't be good at all, looking good at all. Fortunately, the mobile phone editing applications, the default editing application that you have built into the gallery application, it won't do that. Any mobile app, they won't clip the image at all when you're editing them. These are built for common people to edit their photographs and have fun. Okay, so it's simplified version. Okay, so adjusting this slider can bring back the detail or can do the opposite to that part of the image, as in like the parts where the contrast could affect more. So adjusting this appropriately, say if I'm going to put this slider around 24 or 25, it's going to darken the areas a little more and bring details to my face better, and bring the details of the tree in the background better. Okay, and yes, it's going to increase the white a little bit, but that's not the image is focused upon, so we are safe over here. Okay, so that's contrast. So what is contrast? Contrast is the range of brightness in the photograph. Okay, let's get to the saturation. So next slide is about saturation. So there is you seem to be learning a lot of terms, but in terms of photography, these are very basic. There are many other software controls that is available in photography, photograph editing applications like Affinity Photo or raw editors like Darktable. There are plenty of things that you need to know, but these are the basic things which we play upon. Okay, so we use other things to better the things which are basic. Okay, so we have saturation in cameras. Yes, it's available in camera as a software feature in cameras, as well as the in terms of moving mechanical parts as well. Saturation in cameras in terms of photo editing is referring to the intensity of the color. So saturation in camera is also dependent upon the lens that you're using. So if your lens has certain type of coating, your image which is naturally being captured will be aggravated to that particular color or that particular sensitivity of the light spectrum that is hitting your sensor or a film. Okay, so it depends on your lens in cameras. In general, it's more it's signified, or I mean, like it refers to the intensity of the particular color. Okay, so suppose like what you're looking here is my face, which is brown color, and my t-shirt to be slightly on the pink color, and if I'm going to increase the saturation, it's going to be more pink or moving towards violet, and my face is more reddish right now, so probably red and mixture of brown, yellow, and red sort of things, and green has become more green than what it was before. So adjusting this slider, it's going to do that. And when you are moving the slider towards the negative area, what it is doing is like it's turning the image towards the gray side of the colors. Okay, so it's subtracting all that information that is there on the color, and it's almost making it to a point wherein like it's gray. Okay, neither black and white, or you can call it black and white, but it's actually making the image gray. Okay, that's what it does. Okay, I think I've covered all the points over there, from the true color, that is, to the absence of the color, which is a gray color. So that is what it is. When you move the slider to negative slide, it's going to turn your image into black and white. Okay, and adjusting the slider can bring back the color needed or can do the opposite to the image. So it's as simple as that. So if you're going to put it at 50%, you could see that most of the colors have been washed out. If you're going to put that over that, or up on the plus side, you could see like it's popping up, so that's what it does. Okay, saturation is all about the intensity of the color that you're looking at. Okay, so let's get into the next thing, which is called hue. Why hue is in this? There got to be vibrance. You gotta forgive me. Where did I put this? View. Okay, there are no sidebars. I have hidden something. Show tab bar. No. Right, tab bar. View table of contents. Yeah, that it is. Okay. Right, sidebar. And I'm going to reshape this. Okay, we just saw that. We have a small hiccup. Shouldn't be a problem. We'll figure this out. Okay, I'll open this here and get to the point where we have vibrance. Okay, so or I could search here hue vibrance. Okay, one slide got misplaced. Okay, so we do have it in the same presentation. These sort of hiccups happen. So we covered brightness, contrast, and we were supposed to get into vibrance, but we got into hue. Okay, so let's get into the vibrance. Okay, so vibrance, what is the difference between saturation and vibrance? Okay, vibrance is not a concept of photography. That's what it is. Okay, so vibrance is something which was coined by the company Adobe, which creates photo editing application called Photoshop, Lightroom, and many other stuff. Okay, Photoshop Express or Lightroom and many other softwares. Okay, so it is mathematical calculation done in the software to make the image look better. Okay, that is what vibrance is. Okay, so it's almost going to improve the look of the image. Okay, so do you see the difference a little bit? I'm just moving the slider for you to figure it out for yourself. Okay, so vibrance makes the photograph look natural by increasing the intensity of the muted colors in the photograph. Okay, and muted colors are the colors with less saturation. Okay, so when you're looking at this image, when we increase the saturation of this image, it actually popped up the image, all the reds, all the pinks, all these cyan, blues, and everything, green and everything. Okay, so those are the bright colors available on this image. What vibrance is going to do is it's going to affect the other colors, but not the saturation itself, as in like other muted colors, which make the look of the image very natural. Okay, so adjusting vibrance in a software doesn't affect saturated colors, which that's what I discussed right now. That is the last point. So it's going to make the image look natural, and you choose between like how much of vibrance that you wanted for your particular image. Okay, you could crank it up to the maximum or crank it up to the minimum, but you choose like how good your images have to look on your screen, how natural it's going to look on your screen, how good you're going to improve the muted colors on your screen. And how would you know a muted color? You won't know exactly, but when you move the slider of the vibrance, you will understand like what is happening. It's going to turn your image natural looking. Okay, the greens are going to be better green, the browns are going to be better brown, the pink is going to be better pink, or the reds and the yellows and every other color that is there in the photograph. Okay, come on, man, there is so much colors inside. So to talk about what is next, Warmth and the temperature. Yep, have the right side lined up. Warmth and the temperature. Okay, warmth or the temperature refers to the color temperature or the color of your light source. Okay, so you might have noticed in the early morning, color of the sky would be, or the dusk and the dawn, it could be orange and it could be yellow, right? And when the sun is moving up to the noon, it's going to be sky blue or the light blue color, or sometimes whiter even it is too much bright, you know you would find the color changing depending upon the light source. I'm talking about light source, which is sun. Okay, and you have various other light source, LED light source. You have the halogen lamps or the bulbs that you have, that is a different type of light source. Okay, so if the temperature of the light source is like warmer, if a light is going to be hot, your image is going to look on more on the yellowish color. Okay, and if your hot temperature of your bulb or your light source is going to be cold, your image is going to look more on the blue color. Okay, so that is what warmth and temperature is. Okay, light source can be cooler or as blue color or warmer as yellow color, which we saw blue and yellow. Okay, and temperature is measured in Kelvin. So whatever the light source temperature is measured in Kelvin. Lower the temperature value means it's going to be blue in color. Higher the temperature value means it's going to be yellow in color. Okay, that's what it happens. Okay, and people call this temperature, color temperature, in different terms. For the basic app, it's called warmth. Okay, so they have kept it very easy and simple for any commoner to understand. Okay, so next on the list is tint. Yes, of course. Good. I might have screwed that up a little bit in the presentation when I made it into a PDF file. I thought everything was in place. One slide went, different over here. Anyways, no problem. I do not know how long we have been recording this, but anyways, I'll try to get as fast as possible. We've got about 13 slides left. Tint. Okay, tint is nothing. The slider function of the tint applies single color as an overlay to the to your image or photograph. Okay, I'll try to read the presentation and keep this thing faster and try to make you understand things simpler if possible. If I'm going to talk, I'm extending the time limit, as in like the quick time recording is limited to certain things. Anyways, so tint, what it does is like it's going to make your image black and white, and it's going to apply a single color over that black and white image. Okay, right now the basic app on the gallery app, the basic mobile photo editing option on the gallery app of your Android mobile phone, in my case, which is Xiaomi Poco F1, gives me two color options, a gradient of color options from green to pink. So tint applies the color green to my image, or it may applies pink color to my image, making it black and white, and then applies that, which you don't see it visibly, but that's what it does. Okay, so it actually turns the image into black and white and applies that single color to the entire image. Okay, and hue offers a spectrum of colors, but tint only does a single color. So right now we have not discussed about hue. When we discuss about hue, we'll talk about that. Okay, and tint is bright side of the color, shade is darker side of the color, mostly a vintage film or a sepia color look. Okay, so we use tint generally to make it look vintage film alike. Okay, so when I'm moving towards the pink color, you could feel that it's moving, it's appearing like a vintage film, a Kodak film, Ektachrome film. When I'm moving towards the green color, you feel that vintage film look. So that's what they are intending to do with tint. Okay, so when I said what these 2 points signifies is, suppose this color, if this is of a single color, imagine that, or like you have a box and it's a red color, and the brighter side of that color is tint. Okay, And if this is a red color, and when it goes from red to black, okay, so it becomes a, sorry, yeah, computer is slow, so I couldn't judge the speed. So when it moves from red to black, it'll be brown here. It'll be, like of different colors moving towards black. So darker side of the same color is called shade. Okay, so shade is something which will not be available of the basic editing option of any gallery app. Okay, so that is what I tried to put in that slide. So let's go to the next slide and figure what we want to look at. Okay, next, go to the next slide. It's highlights. Okay, good. We have the highlights lined up over there. So highlights. Highlights are the brightest elements of the image. So what is the brightest element of the image? We have the sky, and we have some light falling on my face, my shoulders, my neck, and other thing. So when I'm going to increase highlight, it's going to increase the whiteness of those things which is affecting that, okay, in the photograph. And I'm going to reduce that, it's going to move it towards the gray side of that particular image, like it's going to mute it. Okay, so that is what highlight is. Highlight is the brightest elements of the image. So it could come from the light source of a sun, or it could be a flare, or it could be a light reflection, or ray of light, or beam of light, the sky in our case. Okay, and adjusting this slider can bring back the detail or can do opposite to that part of the image. So bringing back the detail, what it is. So this is a JPEG image. Most of the mobile phones shoot JPEG image. In the consumer medium range mobile phones, they only shoot a common format called JPEG. Okay, so how do I get the detail of particular image? Say I have my bicycle here, so I'm going to go and look at the details. You see that file info. You see the file info. It reads JPEG. So these JPEG images, they have only capability of storing certain color information. It's very limited. It's 8-bit. Okay, so you have 256 colors or so. Okay, and going to a different file format, they can store 16-bit color information, or 24-bit, or more 32-bit. Okay, 32-bit float information. So depending upon that file format, you have color information. And bringing back the details means a raw file just which captures a lot of information from that scene, could contain everything that the image sensor could capture on that particular scene or in that particular exposure it can. So if you have let's get back to that photograph. Okay, photograph of mine. If you have information for the sky a lot, and if you have the information for the darker side of this image, on a raw image, you can bring back all those things. I can make the sky look blue in color if I had shot it in raw. My phone doesn't, and most of the phone doesn't. So that is all about bringing back the details. So highlights is brightest elements of the image. Next comes the shadow. Shadow are the darkest elements of the photograph or an image. So we have the same screen on my mobile phone. Highlights and shadow are coupled together. So we have the shadows. Shadows are the darkest elements of the photograph. So if I'm going to blow up the shadows, which means like I'm lightening the shadows, doing the opposite of what I need, I'm revealing the details that is required, which is falling under the shadow part. Or if I'm going to darken or put it in the negative value, it's going to make the darker side of the image even more darker, where the light source is being blocked by an object. Okay, that is what it's doing. Okay, adjusting the slider can bring back the detail or can do the opposite. Okay, it is the opposite side of an object blocking the light. So in my case, shadow is casted on the object, which is me, or the subject me. Light, which was above my shoulder, and my face, my hands, everything is under the shadow. So moving the sliders, to the negative side, it darkens the shadow part of the image. Increasing the values increases the, reveals the details under my gloves or my beard or my eyes or anything. Okay, so that's what it does. Okay, I'm using my thumb for adjusting the values. You could use some soft touch pens like this, you could adjust, use that as well. But for fine tuning, my fingers are much better. So, what else we have? We have covered highlights and shadows. So, next comes fade. Okay, so the slider control signifies less means opaque, press or presence, more means transparent and absence. Okay, so let's get into the fade here. So fade, that's what, less in this sense is zero value right now. So more fade, what it does is like it's going to create a little bit of you know uh, muted color look in this particular app. Okay, in general, fade is can move up to transparency, but for this photo editing options within the gallery app, it kind of makes the image look little muted. Okay, that's what it does. Okay, so fade in, fade out, that's what you see between transitions and all that. It could go up to transparency or complete opaque of whatever the image that you're seeing on the screen, or it could lighten up a little bit. So anyways, okay, and this default photo editing options on the gallery app doesn't give you options for layering. Like now I do fade of this image to 10 or 15% value here, and then I want to add highlights over this on a different layer of the same image. Those options are not available for the default photo editing option in the default gallery app. Okay,